So let's start the show with something that you have been eagerly awaiting. Disney's latest live-action remake, Snow White, directed by Marc Webb from The Amazing Spider-Man, arrives burdened by years of controversy and cultural discourse. The film attempts to reimagine the 1937 animated classic for modern audiences, infusing it with new themes, expanded character arcs, and a few original songs. However, what should have been a fresh and meaningful update feels more like an exercise in corporate branding gymnastics, straining to be relevant while ultimately coming across as uninspired. Rachel Zegler stars as Snow White, a princess whose father is mysteriously absent, leaving her stepmother, the evil queen, played by Gadot, to rule the kingdom. Unlike the passive damsel of the original, this Snow White is positioned as a young woman struggling to understand how to challenge the queen's rule. But instead of a compelling character arc, what we get is a protagonist who spends much of the film hesitating, as though unsure of whether to embrace rebellion or remain an institutionalist. The film reworks the love story, replacing the traditional Prince Charming with Jonathan Andre Burnett, a Robin Hoodesque rebel who taunts Snow White for her privilege before loading her toward a vague idea of resistance. This shift theoretically offers a modern, self-reliant heroine, but instead plays out like a novel trope, where a naive, sheltered girl is radicalized by a brooding outsider. While there is potential in a Snow White who actively fights for her kingdom, the film never fully commits to this reinvention. The evil queen, meanwhile, is disappointingly one note. Gadot delivers a performance so stiff and exaggerated that it nearly becomes unintentionally entertaining. But the character lacks depth. Unlike the chilling menace of the 1937 version, this queen is merely an over-the-top villain who indulges in luxury while letting her enemies bicker among themselves. Despite its reported high budget, Snow White suffers from uninspired production design. The film leans into an artificial, theme park-like aesthetic, plasticky sets, overly polished CGI creatures, and costumes that look straight out of a Disney gift shop. The dwarves, or what remains of them, are particularly strange, appearing as animated figurines that never quite fit into the live-action world around them. Rather than immersing audiences in a fairy tale, Snow White feels like an expensive but lifeless imitation. The film introduces new songs by Pasek and Paul, but they lack the charm and staying power of Disney's best compositions. The most prominent addition, Waiting on a Wish, is serviceable but forgettable, failing to reach the emotional heights of classics like Someday My Prince Will Come. While some of the added plot points, such as Snow White's moral struggles or Jonathan's rebel group, could have been intriguing, they are executed with little depth, making the film feel longer than its 109-minute runtime. Snow White is yet another example of Disney's live-action remakes failing to justify their existence beyond nostalgia-driven marketing. While Zegler does her best with the material and there are occasional moments of visual appeal, the film lacks the magic, emotional resonance, and craftsmanship of the original. Instead, it offers a muddled message on inspired music and a plasticky aesthetic that feels more suited to a Disneyland ride than a cinematic experience. But if you're really a fan of the franchise, you may try it once.